Jean is taking a shower and getting dressed to go somewhere. She applies makeup and looks at the pictures on the wall. She feels the pictures with her finger and then touches her face as if she wants to find some similarity. She is waiting in Robert's office. While sitting on the couch, she observes a little girl with black hair staring at her from a distance. The next moment, she disappears. She goes to meet Robert with her idea for a novel. He tells her that writing fiction is not her thing, and that she is doing great writing biographies and reports. She tells him her ideas for writing about her childhood. Robert demotivates her by telling her that her childhood is long gone, and nobody takes interest in such topics. She tells him that she wants to fill the gap in her childhood, as she does not have any memories before 8 years of age. She picks up her file and comes out. She seems to lose her balance, as she feels dizzy. Robert advances to hold her, but she goes out. While on the road, she finds the same little girl crossing the road. She goes after her, but she is gone. After a while, she sees her lying on the road due to an accident. She rushes over, but the whole scene gets changed when a horn blares. She is disillusioned. She starts crying while walking on the road. On reaching home, she takes her son and daughter from her mother's house. They are studying, whereas her mother is playing cards and drinking. Her mother asks her about her meeting with Robert. She tells her that he does not like the idea. She shows her disgust for her activities like playing cards. Theo, her husband, picks them up. He stops on the way to buy a camcorder. He turns it on and begins to record them. The kids enjoy it, but she feels a bit agitated. She asks him to rewind the video that he recorded earlier. She notices the order and pattern of things changed one moment, and changed again the very next moment. She feels restless at this. She hates the scar on her leg. The next morning, she finds Theo and the kids in the kitchen eating breakfast. She goes to the refrigerator to get honey. She gets hyper at trivial things, and shakes the table in agitation. The kids are terrified at this. Theo takes them out, whereas she sits there sobbing. She holds the camcorder and begins to watch the video. She remains shocked to see herself and Theo as entirely different people. The whole house seems like an alien place for her. She holds her head and sits there in shock. She tells Theo about forgetting everything. She tells him that things seem to be unfamiliar to her. She finds herself unable to recognize their faces. They seem to be another family to her. Theo tells her about the possibility of having a tumor, as she is forgetting everything. She begins to cry, and she tells him that she can still recognize certain things. The next morning, her mother comes in and she leaves with Theo. They go to meet the clients to narrate their story outline. Jean starts narrating the story, but Theo breaks in and starts to narrate his own version. The clients ask them if they will decide soon. They come back home and lie down to sleep. Late at night, she goes out into the living room and finds the same little girl there. The girl seems to be moving fast around her. Theo comes there, turning on the light. He asks her about her weeping. She refuses to admit that she has been weeping, but finds her hands and face wet with tears. He asks her to come into the room. The next morning, she goes somewhere, but she cannot recognize the place. The route and the buildings seem unfamiliar to her. She hardly escapes an accident when a woman comes in front of her car while crossing the road. She reaches a shop, where she calls someone, but they are not reachable. Theo comes over to take her, but she gets horrified on seeing him as his face has changed once again. She goes with him, telling him that she had a little memory leap, but she is feeling fine now. They go home. On reaching home, the kids come running to her. She feels everything is alien, including her house and her kids. She tells him that she wants to get her clothes changed and goes into the room. Theo asks the kids to watch cartoons to lessen the impact of her harsh behavior. She opens the wardrobe and finds her clothes unfamiliar. She picks up one and changes her clothes. She finds her rings not belonging to her and takes them off. Suddenly, she feels strange marks on her leg and the muscles of her feet get tight. She closes the wardrobe and sees her reflection in the mirror. She finds half of her face changed entirely, as half of her hair is long. It seems that the faces of two women are merged into one. She gets back, covering her face with her hands. Theo comes into the room. He rushes to her and tells her that her face has turned red. She asks him if he has noticed anything else. Theo gets worried about this. He takes her to bed. She gets intimate with him, recognizing him as the husband with whom she has been living. During the act, she finds his face has turned different once again. She screams at him to get off. He gets off, shocked and angry. The kids get there and tell their father that the movie has ended. She almost throws herself on the bed and asks him to take her to the hospital. In the hospital, she tells the doctor that she finds everything changed, the colors, the objects, and even herself. He asks her to describe her husband. She says that she sees him as handsome. The doctor begins to describe every single feature of him. She tells her that she finds him the same at the moment, but he is not the same man she has been living with. Theo looks incredulous. He states to the doctor that she got into an accident when she was 8 years old, and that she might have dementia. The doctor asks him not to let her be treated in the hospital, as there is no neurological fault and that things would unfold over time. They leave. On their way back home, she asks Theo to drop her off at her mother's house. He looks upset at this, but drops her there, asking her to call him the next day. She goes to her mother's house but does not find her there. She finds her playing cards at the club. She rushes to her and asks her to go with her. The mother asks her to wait for 10 minutes, but she gets agitated. She feels her body trembling and the muscles of her face tightening. She draws a mirror out of her purse and looks at her face. The attendant of the club comes over and asks her to put it back. She goes to her mom in anger and tells her that she is leaving. The mother hands her the card and asks her to get home, and that she is approaching just after her. On reaching home, she is lying on the bed in her pajamas. She goes to the kitchen, where she finds her mother cooking. She asks her about her novel, to which she gets hyper. Her mother screams back at her and tells her that the novel is getting on her nerves. She goes to her room, sobbing. She takes 3 pills one after the other, opening the drawer. There she finds some old pictures of her family, Tio, and the kids. She happens to see a picture in which she and her mother are standing with another lady. The mother gets there, but she remains shocked to see her face, which is entirely different from her mother's. She gets terrified. She asks her about her childhood, but the mother tells her that it hurts her. She draws a locket that the blonde woman is wearing in the picture and puts the picture and the locket into her bag as she wants to go out. Her mother locks the door and goes out, weeping. She climbs out of the rear window and leaves. Tio comes to meet her at the station. He asks her not to go, as her kids need her. She replies that she does not recognize anyone, even her own face. He tells her that her mother's being frantic, to which she replies that she is not her mother and shows him the picture. Tio finds it quite simple, as Jean and her mother are there with a blonde woman in the picture. She asks him to let go for some time. He goes back, whereas she goes to find her identity. Reaching there, she goes to the same cafe where the picture was taken. She finds the blonde lady there, whom she knows is her mother. She comes to her hotel and goes to the cafe again. She finds everything quite familiar. She goes into the cafe and calls her mom. She stops for a while, but asks her to sit at a table. Afterward, she comes to take her order. Jean introduces herself and asks for her name. The lady insists on her order. She finds Tio, the same man she knows as her husband, standing there with her mom. The lady goes home, and the man comes to serve her. She asks him about the lady. He tells her that she is his mother, and asks her to eat something, as she is getting pale. She decided to go back to her hotel. She pays the bill on the counter, where she finds the picture of the same little girl on the wall. She asks for her, but the very next moment, there is no picture but instead a mirror on the wall. She comes back to the hotel, limping. On the way, the same girl comes, and she tries to chase her, but she disappears. She finds the scars on her arm and leg getting worse. She is lying on her bed in a sleeping gown when the man comes knocking at her door. He tells her that his name is Johnny, and he has come to know about her. Jean calls him Tio and drags him onto her bed. They get intimate, but she pushes him back, saying that he has gotten Tio's face but she cannot feel him. Johnny goes out. At night, she has a dream about 2 little kids who are playing together. She gets up at once and hears laughing sounds at a distance. She goes to her window and finds that little girl standing there. She follows her through the streets and reaches the cafe. There is a party being celebrated there. She goes in and becomes a part of the celebration by dancing with others. She finds her leg in sheer pain and she goes upstairs, limping. The house seems to be familiar to her. She hears the whispers of Johnny and her mother. He is insisting upon getting her back to their house, as he has recognized her to be his sister, Rosa Maria. His mother tells him that she died long ago, but he went out. She gets into a room to hide. The room brings back everything to her memory. She feels every single object lying there, and sits in front of a mirror. Her mother comes over and tells her that she has recognized her to be Rosa Maria, as she looks exactly like her father. She tells her that she called Nadia her mother in Paris because her husband would not accept her as his daughter and he would not love her as he loves her brother Johnny. Flashback. Nadia came in with her daughter Jean and her son to pick her up. She got into the car with the others. On the way, she held Jean's hand. Suddenly their car met with an accident, which resulted in the deaths of everyone except Nadia and Rosa Maria. Nadia told her that she clung to her, calling her her mother, and she began to call herself Jean, who had forgotten everything about her past. Nadia had been there as her mother on her sleepless nights. Present, she comes back to Tio and her kids, as she has solved every mystery about her past. She takes her other self along with her as a part of her life. She comes in and finds Tio and her kids happy to see her back. He asks them if she has brought presents for them. She smiles at her older self, standing in the hallway, when her daughter comes and takes her in.